Alrighty, good morning, everyone. I hope we are all doing well. It's 11:55 a.m. I have a couple hours before I have to go into the bookstore, and I was gonna watch these videos just by myself, and then I was like watching Mark Fusion's. I like looked through Mark Fusion's channel, and he just like streams himself watching stuff, and I never do that. Um, and this was a video I'm sure I'm gonna have a lot of opinions on. So the only issue is, for whatever reason, I've had some issue with audio in StreamYard. So I didn't share this anywhere yet because I want to make sure it works first before I start posting it around. Because if it doesn't work, I might just do a whole different kind of thing. So let's see if this audio comes through. Hopefully it does. Guys, just let me know. So let's see. Hey, thank you, PsychoMan90. It's I want to see how the audio is for the video I'm about to play, so let me know if it works. Should I be like, which one should I be like? Please let this just freaking work.
They're perfectly mentally healthy. Of course, this situation could never arise because nobody who is perfectly mentally healthy would ever want an arm flesh appendage sewn onto their groin. No man who is perfectly mentally healthy would ever want his penis inverted. So I'm describing.
Is the audio coming in clearly, guys?
If there were that person and they for some bizarre reason wanted that done, and they knew,
does it sound weird?
And they knew that there was no proof whatsoever that it was going to make their life better.
But they did it for
knew that it was
kicks
going
and
to,
giggles.
Yeah, if you wanted to destroy your health and you know what you're letting yourself in for, and crucially, it's going to get a bit turfy on you now, but if you're a man and you're going to have your penis inverted, you must know that that doesn't make you a woman and therefore give you access to women's spaces.
If you genuinely believed you had the
so just so you guys know, if you don't know who these people are, so this is a channel I like to watch. This guy, Peter Bogghosian, he's one of those kind of like a Brett Weinstein, like former professor who got canceled and went the route of, taking advantage of the publicity and going into media creation, doing interviews, etc. And I really like the conversations that he has. Anyway, and Mia Hughs is a journalist who just had this huge, there's this group, Wpath, that is like the leading authority on like trans healthcare. And it recently came out that there's a lot of the research that they were using to base a lot of transition and like especially youth transition, it was all kind of built on a house of cards. Because it's a really hard thing to study. Obviously, you can't do a control group when it involves children, puberty, and transitioning. But ultimately, when a child is changing, the goal is, the only reason you would transition a child is so that they pass better when they're older, aka approximate the opposite sex better. And I think that anyone should be allowed to present themselves in any which way. Unfortunately, though, when they do these procedures, it can often result in lifelong infertility, a complete loss of sexual function, because if you don't go through puberty, certain things like young boys who take puberty blockers, they end up not having enough penis tissue to even get the sex change surgery when they're older, because there's not even enough penile tissue developed to use. And these people, they are never going to have sexual function. And that's a huge part of life. And I have a lot of trans friends, a lot of trans people in my audience, and I love and support them. I use any pronouns people want. My only issues are with the youth transition and denying reality. Trans women are trans women. They're different than cis women, but I don't really have big beef with calling, I don't know. I've dabbled in gender critical spaces, but I'm a little too trans friendly for that, but I'm a little too gender critical for the trans people. So I've kind of like bounced around in my own space. And before I got completely thorpified, that was primarily the content that I was focusing on. Was I had this fixation on gender and why there is, well, first off, why it's such a hot button issue when it's only concerning the interests of like 0.001% of the population, but that 0.001% of the population is trying to enact policies that affect everyone, you know? So that's where the issue starts. Anyway, little background. We can continue the video. This is going to be really interesting.
Then isn't part and parcel of that a willingness to converse?
Yeah, I see. You know, there is that.
Oh,
the
I
fact
didn't pull
that they
the video
won't
back up.
engage with us at all is an indication that perhaps somewhere deep down they know they've got this wrong. And I do think about that because, you know, the power of self-justification. When you take one step down, you've got the pyramid, and one person goes one way and one person goes the other way with a very difficult ethical decision. And so they chose to go down the gender-affirming care, body modification route. And every step down that pyramid, they self-justified. The first child they sterilized. This was the right thing to do because this is a transgender person. 100 kids later, they're basically living in a fortress of their own making with the self-justification is so powerful that they're not letting the truth in. I think that's where they are. They made this decision. If they see what we see, they have to see that they are monsters. And so they're just not letting themselves see it.
I think that should give us courage, exposure to other people's perspectives.
Moving us in a good direction.
We just finished a very intense, fantastic conversation with Mia Hughs. She's a journalist, researcher from Michael Schellenberger's nonprofit, Civilization Works. She's also the author of the Wpath files. We're here in Lisbon, and we talked about trans issues, transgenderism, and all that encompasses. I hope you enjoy the show. Mia Hughs, thanks for coming on Conversations with Peter Bogghosian. What brings you to Lisbon?
I'm here for the GenSpect conference. I'm speaking on the first day.
What are you talking about?
Also, oh my God, I'm so pissed that I couldn't afford. I would have loved to go to the GenSpect conference, and like, I'm so jealous that Jack Jewell went, and here he is hanging out with like Helen Joyce and like Heather Heying and all of these like icons of the movement. And so anyway, if you haven't checked out Jack Jewell's channel, he's popping off, and he also covers kind of gender critical content, but from an empathetic perspective. He's a gay man, and we've done some collaborations like early on. We both were kind of hyping each other up, and it's really awesome to see their growth. And yeah, so I would highly recommend checking them out if you haven't. Yes, I think that's all I have to say.
The title of my talk is actually, it's very mildly worded, and I don't think it does justice to what I'm going to say. It's called Gender Dysphoria, an Incomplete Diagnosis. And what it doesn't say is that I think gender dysphoria is the most harmful, the most destructive, and the most dangerous diagnosis in existence in psychiatry today, but quite possibly ever in all of psychiatry.
Really?
Yeah.
So for those of us who don't know your work, there are many people who are trans advocates who are, so shall we say, not happy with you. So what's your shtick? Like, how did you get into this, and what do you do?
It's a good story, actually. So I was a stay-at-home mother.
So Wpath is referred to as kind of like been the leading, like most respected organization that a lot of medical institutions have turned to as expertise in transgender medical care. But it turned out that they were using a lot of false accreditation and like completely misrepresenting and also suppressing information that went against this idea that like, if you don't transition your kid, they're going to kill themselves. Otherwise, they had to create a life and death situation here. Otherwise, there's no excuse to sterilize children. There's no excuse to do cosmetic surgery on children. You know what I mean? Also, I welcome anyone who disagrees with me or anything to come up and talk to me, because I'm very open-minded on the topic, and I used to be a fully buy into like what's popularly referred to as like trans ideology. Trans women are women. And I do treat like my trans female friends like as women, and a lot of them I feel that like female, like a feminine spirit to them. And I think there's a lot we don't understand about how the brain works. And when people tell me like I suffer so much unless I present this way, I'm just going to take their word for it as long as it's not harming anyone else. It's the issue with the youth care. It's the predatory clinics. It's the rapid onset gender dysphoria that's being treated as if it's this same exact thing as the typical presentation of gender dysphoria and not social contagion. There's just so many tangential issues like connected to the nucleus of the trans issue. And as someone in like a feminist background, it's interesting to see how the feminist movement has just totally like, you know, in popular culture, broadly cyanide, except I can't say it's been very suppressed. There has always been a strong feminist backlash to like having males going into females' prisons, to having males competing in female sports. There's always been a feminist backlash to that, but they were called TERFs. They're harassed, they're threatened, they've been persecuted with the law. And it's honestly strange how much focus has been put on like women who criticize trans women and not like the men who kill trans women or like the actual threats to their safety. It's like, no, it's definitely that woman who said that boys have penises. So bad. Yeah, I guess we're doing Ruby Tuesdays again. And here we are.
I lived in Taiwan for a number of years. I met my husband, had 3 children. And then I was a stay-at-home mother, which is something I never saw myself being. You know, as an adolescent, didn't even want kids. And then my kids were all in school. I got a job. I was a teacher before, so I started teaching again. And then COVID hit. Yes. My kids did a day and a half of remote learning.
I forgot to
this is definitely not for us. So I pulled them. I homeschooled them all the way through COVID.
So fucking stupid.
And during that time, I discovered, well, before that, actually, I'd already discovered that something wasn't quite right with this gender issue, this trans issue. And I'd been digging around in it, doing the research, and I just started tweeting. When I first started tweeting, I had like 4 followers. 3 of them were probably bots. And I started tweeting about gender. My account grew really, really quickly. This was in the pre-Elon days, so I got suspended and kept rebuilding. And eventually I started writing because I needed to make sense of it. You know, I'm seeing like all of a sudden people believe that men can become women. Heterosexual men can be lesbians. And if lesbians say no to them, then lesbians are bigots. Lesbians are transphobic for saying no to these heterosexual men who think they're women and think they're lesbians.
So to people who are in like my audience who come from maybe like a more conservative area or social group, it does seem so outraged that like how could have anyone ever like taken this seriously? But coming from leftist spaces, this has been not only the you know the ideological standard, it's like was actively like enforced upon people. You're shunned if you criticize it and labeled as a transphobic bigot. And quite frankly, I don't really think I have any hate towards trans people whatsoever. I feel like I have a disproportionate amount of connections and interactions with trans people that I really enjoy and cherish. But like I've said, my only issues are with the kids and like female prisons. Beyond that, I really power to you. I love people expressing themselves and pursuing their happiness in whatever way they see fit. It's a beautiful thing about being an American or being free in the West is that people can pursue even the most extreme lifestyle that you don't understand, as long as it's not harming other people. And what I don't like is lying, medical exploitation of LGBT and autistic youth or LGB and autistic youth who are not getting the medical care they need. We're seeing rising amounts of detransitioners, girls who will never be able to breastfeed their offspring. We have detransitioners who are having kids now. Can't, you know, they don't even have that option. I didn't think I wanted kids until I was like 31. You know, and I know that's very late in the game and it's probably not going to happen, but you change so much in your life and it's really cruel to rob someone of potential and to remove healthy tissue, healthy function when it's not absolutely necessary. And what the research is showing is that it doesn't appear as though there is any basis for this new policy on youth gender transition. it's a whatever. She'll explain it better than I can. I'm just giving backstory for my audience who isn't tuned into this stuff.
Lesbians, and this was all mad. And then what's happening to children and adolescents in gender clinics? They're chopping healthy body parts off adolescents. They're sterilizing them. All this stuff didn't make any sense to me. So I turned to history as a way to make sense of the present moment, just for my own interest, reading about past psychiatric epidemics, past social contagions, medical scandals. And I started writing threads about what I'd read just to help other people understand, because it was helping me understand. My account grew really quickly then. And then one day I wrote a thread about, there's a paraphilia called apotemnophilia. And this is where people want healthy limbs chopped off, normally one leg, sometimes two legs, maybe an arm.
Yeah.
And they're sexually aroused by this idea and they fixate on it and they want healthy body parts chopped off. So I did a thought experiment comparing that to the trans thing, and imagine if we had a world in which children were told they could be born with amputee identities and kids start having their legs chopped off. And on that day that it went viral, a man called Michael Schellenberger showed up in my DMs and offered me a job. Now, I didn't know who he was at the time, so I turned him down. But he was persistent, and I eventually ended up going to work for
Michael Schellenberger is another really good resource. I believe I found him. There's like that website Quillette that does kind of, what do they call it? Like heterodox viewpoints. I believe I came across him there, but he also, it's a great Twitter account to follow, Michael Schellenberg. It's just a lot of great reporting on the topic.
Writing about gender. And then he got this stack of documents that is now known as the Wpath files.
Right.
So it was leaked internal communications from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And that's the reason we're in Lisbon right now, is because so are they. And we kind of follow Wpath around the world. But for Michael, I turned the Wpath files into a 70-page report that then was released in March.
Reed and I were talking about that. Okay, so you're here for that. That's an interesting story. I got a couple of things lingering on my mind. I just want to ask real quick. What was it about it when you saw in COVID your kids' school? Like, what was it about it that you said, well, wait a second, I have to homeschool them? Was there any one thing?
Well, I mean, first of all, let me just say my youngest was grade 1. And then I had grade 3 and grade 5. So we're talking children.
Yeah.
And they're online, they're staring at a screen, they're supposed to be able to focus.
Oh, so it wasn't the content then? It wasn't anything anybody said?
No, it was nothing really. I mean, I got firsthand, I had heard about the land acknowledgements. My eldest child had told me that there were, in Canada we are here gathered on the unceded territory.
You just give the land back.
Exactly. If you feel that much guilt, give the land back 100%. Instead of just like saying how terrible it is that we're on this stolen land, but we're not going to give it back.
And doing it in perpetuity, by the way.
And to children, to grade 1 children, every day when they start school, every morning, making them feel guilty for living on stolen land, that's psychological abuse.
Yeah. And it's also performative because they don't do anything.
Of course, it's stupid.
It's like,
but I knew that was happening anyway.
Also, it's funny, the thing about like, I mean, it's not like pointless to like talk about history, but it's just like it's not unique to Western culture to steal land. And it's actually very infantilizing to like non-Western cultures to be like, hey, you guys weren't even players in the game. We invented stealing land, okay? And we are so sorry that we are just always the best. Like, do you guys not see, like, I'm coming from like a more progressive perspective. I just find that to be actually more demeaning to like non-Western cultures, to act like they're not even players in the game, and like whatever. I don't even know if I'm making sense right now. Let's just keep watching this.
So that's not why I pulled my kids. It was just that I don't believe that's how children learn. Sitting in front of a screen, whole class of kids, teachers trying to keep their attention.
Okay.
It just wasn't for my children. And homeschooling was wonderful and amazing. My children have precious memories. They blossomed and they thrived. So it was great.
It's almost the opposite of my children's memories. Okay, well that's good.
Did you homeschool?
No, my kids were older, but they were not happy about it. They lost a lot.
Yeah.
Like everybody, they lost a lot.
Yeah.
So let me set something up. I'm gonna throw something out. I'm sitting like this because I have a bad shoulder, not because I'm defensive. So let me throw something out to you. So Stella O'Malley is the organizer of the conference, and I called Stella and I said, hey, I have an idea. So let's invite the Wpath people, because that's why she does GenSpect, same city. I think it's literally one street over, right?
They're not far. I did look. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's invite them to go on stage and have not a debate, but a conversation. Like, what do you believe and why do you believe it? And then she said, great. She invited them. They didn't come. So my
See, I would have loved to watch that because I don't really have a dog in this fight beyond my concerns around like single sex spaces and the need for females as a sex class to be a meaningful word and legal category. I think is actually extremely important. Anyway. What's up, Psycho Man? I have to get ready for work. Listening, Ruby. Have a good day. You too. Yeah, I'm watching. I was inspired by Mark Fusion to just do more of like a react stream where I just kind of chill out and smoke and watch and give my little commentary on it. Too many tabs.
Presentation is going to be.
Oh, but I would have loved to see GenSpect and Wpath have like a debate, talk about these ideas, because if there's something I'm not understanding from their side of the argument, I would love to get there, because it's actually socially unpopular for me to be like critical of trans people, because I have so many trans friends. So much of like my social group was in like LGBT and like creative and leftist spaces. So I would actually really prefer to go back to agreeing with all my friends, honestly. So if they could present a more compelling case, I would fucking love that, honestly.
I'm going to try to make their arguments better than they could. That's mine. So I was figuring maybe we could use this as an opportunity to test it. To be clear, I don't believe any of this stuff. That's not going to prevent people from chopping it out and saying.
And I wanted to do like more reaction just like there was some issue in StreamYard where it was like the audio is coming in super fucked up. But I've only had that happen when I had other people up on the screen with me. But it is nice to just do, more relaxed content like this where I'm watching something, because I'd be watching stuff before work anyway. Anyway, speaking of happy, amazing, awesome things, I think I just heard a beautiful, beautiful sound. It sounded almost like angels from heaven. Boom! Dude, are you kidding me? Dude, are you kidding me? Is this a joke right now? Bro, okay, Psychoman 90. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to beat this, but we just got a $50 tip. And he said Ruby Fusion, and with a sign, it's my money for pizza and coffee. Thank you so fucking much, dude. I actually had to borrow $20 from my mom so now I can pay her back, which would be awesome, because I totally ran out of cigarettes this morning. Anyway, we've all heard me complain and e-bag. We get it. We get it. Desperation, poverty. We get it. Thank you so much. I really, really, really beyond appreciate it. So let me update my banner. You guys have really been so fucking awesome, and I really appreciate it. Oops, I'm clicking the wrong thing to fix my banner. All right, so now we're almost at our goal already, and we're only like 20 minutes into the stream. All right. We love to see it. We love to see it. Oops. Oh, sorry. I'm so good at this that it's crazy. Yeah. Okay.
And then I believe it.
Of course.
So you tell me what you think the major claims are, and then I'll try to defend those. Is that cool if we do this? I know you're super jet lagged.
I am very jet lagged, but sure, we can try.
Okay, why don't we just go, like, just give me a claim that they believe. Sex is a sign of birth, or just any claim.
I mean, to me, it all rests on the core belief that they have that I don't share, is that there's such a thing as a transgender person, that this is a natural, healthy variation of human existence. It is not a mental disorder. It's, some people are just born trans. That's where everything that flows out from that is going to be in complete opposites, because I don't believe that and they do.
Okay, so let me.
And here's where I'm not. I mean, there's no doubt that people experience gender dysphoria and for whatever reason find relief presenting it as the opposite sex. I just don't think we have enough information on how the brain works and all these things to make like these broad declarative statements that it doesn't exist, you know, or like that there isn't some real like intersex condition there. I mean, the most plausible idea to me is that gender dysphoria is caused by some kind of like hormone interaction in utero, perhaps the most typical cases of like gender dysphoria. But the other issue is we are not treating typical cases of gender dysphoria anymore. It's a lot of young women who are transitioning to male. That demographic increased by thousands of %. If that doesn't scream social contagion, I don't know what does. And then this huge rise of detransitioner. That doesn't, like, I don't know. I don't know. I would love to be wrong, though. Dead ass. I would love to be wrong. So if anyone thinks I'm wrong or wants to enlighten me, I'm
see if I can
all
defend that
ears.
belief, and then just have at me. So the idea is that there's just such a thing as a transgender person. Okay. So let me ask you some questions to tease some things out here. Do you believe that gender falls on a spectrum?
First, you need to define gender.
Do you believe that some women...
That's the thing, too. I identify as more of maybe like a gender abolitionist. I think that you are your physical sex, and how you present in clothing or surgery or anything beyond that, you know, your sex is your gamete. Do you produce ova or sperm? There's only 2 gamete types that I'm aware of. That's just how sex evolved, and obviously it's been an evolutionarily useful tool because it's been replicated across all kinds of animal species that we see this 2-sex system. But gender is more human. We're obviously expressing ourselves in ways that are way more nuanced and intricate than like animals do. So that's where I leave a lot of space for ambiguity here, because I just don't know. And I do see, I have a lot of friends who were very distressed by their biological sex and found relief in presenting as the opposite sex. And I will use the pronouns they prefer, even if I do not actually see them as that sex. I will often receive trans women as just like feminine, you know, so I'll use a feminine pronoun if they appear feminine, you know, is kind of how I roll. But I get why people are very like sticklers about using like accurate sex language, because this conversation has gotten so muddied to the point where we have male inmates raping female inmates, and the ACLU being like, "Oh, that's a case we should take on. We got to get more men in the female prison." Like sex offender males who are like obviously abusing the system so obviously. And the unwillingness of the trans movement to acknowledge these realities has set themselves up for this fucking failure and explosion and backlash that we're seeing, you know? So I don't fucking know what to say, man.
Are more masculine and some women are more feminine.
Of course.
Okay. So we've got that. So at the extremes of that, some women are extremely masculine and some men are extremely feminine.
Still with you? Yep.
Okay. So we agree on that. So would you agree that some women are so masculine that they feel like men?
I wouldn't say they feel like men, because no woman can ever know what it is to feel like a man. Women only know what it is to be a woman. I do know, because I've spoken to many butch lesbians in my career, is that it's difficult to be at the extreme. So you stand out, you get snide remarks, funny looks, if you're extremely gender nonconforming. And there's a lovely woman, Carol, she's in California, butch lesbian, who transitioned way back in 2014 or something. Or I think she detransitioned in 2014. And she told me she's as butch as it could possibly be. And she told me that she transitioned to be invisible. She just had a breast cut off, took testosterone so that she could go out into the world and not be a masculine woman. But that doesn't mean she is a trans man. She was ever transgender, because there's no such thing. She was just a butch lesbian who got tired of the homophobia that she encountered every time she left the house.
So in that case, she's a woman who, at least at one point,
she is a woman and always has been.
Okay,
always
so
will be.
She is a woman. I'm trying to take the stance here. So she's a woman. She was a butch lesbian. She was masculine. She felt that she wanted to be a man. She underwent surgery to attempt to make herself look more like a man. I assume hormones are in that suite of things that she did. Okay. So isn't that sufficient evidence that she is trans?
God damn it. That was all for all of that. Anyway, what happened to transvestites is they got shamed out of existence by the trans movement, because they're very threatened by autogynephiles who are open about that, because voice not, I know, I fucking unmuted it. Anyway, so like you used to have, like, I loved ContraPoints' early content, where ContraPoints is like, trans people, that's great. I'm just a good old fashioned cross dresser. I just like wearing women's clothing, and that's just great. I want to bring back the good old fashioned cross dressers. And if you're curious to hear about autogynephiles or AGP content, look up Phil Illy. He is the leading authority on all things AGP, and he's really good at highlighting. I've been watching his Twitter, and he'll do like posts where he covers like the trans like Reddits, where people will literally make a post that's like, I'm a man and I identify as a man and I'm comfortable as a man, but I do feel aroused dressing in women's clothing, and once a week I like to go out in women's clothing, and then I go home and like masturbate about it. And usually these posts get instantly removed, even if someone's just being like totally genuine and just like looking for like some kind of guidance or whatever. But yeah, they'll be removed, suppressed. They'll say, or they'll push them to transition. They'll say like, oh, you are trans. Like, obviously you're a trans egg and you need to hatch into a beautiful trans woman. So there is this like funneling and pushing of people towards, permanent medical procedures that I think can be a little concerning at times.
All right. Well, you'd have to define what is trans. In my mind, when Wpath's talking about trans, a person is transgender, that to them means they have, we can take it a bit further.
Okay.
They believe in the existence of a gender identity, which I do not. So they believe that there's something that resides within us all that is called a gender identity. It's like a psychological sex or something.
Like a soul.
A gender soul residing within you. There's no scientific evidence for this. It's just a bonkers idea that someone came up with and they ran away with because they wanted to disguise what actually is driving trans-identified men to say that they're women. That's autogynephilia. They want to disguise the fetish, the paraphilia. So they go with this gender soul. It's much easier to sell to the public. And then you've got people with male bodies who have a female essence within them. And there's nothing you can do to change that. You can't change the female soul. So the only thing you can do is change the body. That to me is what they mean by transgender.
Okay, so isn't the existence of extremely butch lesbians who want to remove their body parts, wouldn't that be sufficient evidence to believe that? I mean, we're working under the assumption that these people are sincere.
They are sincere. I do believe they're sincere.
Yeah. Okay. So we both share that assumption. So, isn't that sufficient evidence to believe that there's some kind of gendered spirit or soul?
No, that's just evidence that people have.
There is actually the inverse of autogynephilia is autoandrophilia. So a lot of like rapid onset gender dysphoria cases, in my perception, appear to be cases of young women or who either have autoandrophilia or are lesbians and fantasize about being in the male role. But there's definitely, if you look into, there's a lot of crossover with like the MTF, like TikTok and like whatever those websites where people do like fan fictions, and they do these very elaborate gay fan fictions. And these autoandrophiles are obsessed with presenting as gay men and want to, their ultimate validation is to be accepted and fucked by other gay men. And it's kind of like the meta attraction that happens with like an autogynephile. It's interesting. They become so enraptured by the female role that even a heterosexual man will fuck a man just to feel like a woman because they're so turned on by woman. I'm sorry, it's fascinating to me. Long-standing hyperfixation here.
Varying degrees of masculinity and femininity, and it exists on this spectrum that they're always talking about. But a woman can be as masculine as she wants, but she'll still always be a woman, and there's no essence within her. I came across, I don't know if you want me to go here, but I came across,
Go wherever you want. Yeah.
When I was trying to make sense of all of this, I've been doing this for years, I finally, a few months ago, came across a concept that helps me make sense of it anyway. And I think it's from like 1892 or something. Carl Wernicke, he was a psychiatrist, and he came up with this concept of the extreme overvalued belief that sometimes societies get attached to this overvalued belief. It's not true, it's not real, it's just a belief. And so like people can commit terrible acts of violence or do terrible things to themselves or others in the service of this belief. So in my mind, and he's like, it's not a delusion, because a delusion is individually held. It's a crazy belief, but only you have it. Everyone around you doesn't share it.
It's a culture bound syndrome.
It's very similar to culture bound syndrome, but it's a belief that gets out into society, and large numbers of people subscribe to it. So it's not an obsession, because that's internal. It's something that large numbers of the population in your cultural group, they believe it, even though it's not true. And then all hell breaks loose. And so the way I see it, Wpath, they are invested in this overvalued belief that we possess gender identities, and that this gender identity can get trapped in the wrong sex body. And the only way to help these people who have this mismatch is to chop body parts off them and castrate them, whatever. But none of it's real. It's just an overvalued belief that many members of society have, for some reason, latched onto.
When you say none of it's real, what do you mean? I mean, it's a extant phenomenon. What do you mean none of it's real?
Well, what I mean is there's no such. This is not going to be popular with trans activists.
Also, wait, my face looks weird. I think there's like hold on. I think sometimes there's like like a light filter on. I look too good right now, and it's giving weird. If there's a filter on this right now, I don't want it to be on. Okay, because I serve the raw realness. Okay, we can see skin texture. That's okay. where's the settings? There's like a touch up my appearance setting. So this is it on. Let me turn it off. Was that scary? I just turned it off. I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal to have freckles and skin texture, but apparently StreamYard wanted to beautify me real quick. Anyway, let's get back to business. Okay, I just got a little beautified against my will. Okay, let's roll, bitches.
Who cares?
I don't care.
I've invited them. They won't come and talk to me. So
All right.
That's why I'm trying to do the best to represent their opinion. Look, we literally invited Wpath. I put out multiple tweets for them to come on stage. So who cares if it's not popular? If you don't like it, come in and have a conversation with me, or else shut the fuck up. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So there's no such thing as a transgender person. It's a political identity. It's not
feel that
an
energy.
innate variation of human existence. If you take away, I'm going to say this tomorrow or the next day in my talk, but if you take away the political identity of transgender, throw it in the rubbish, it's worthless.
Okay.
Then you have to look at the people who have adopted this political identity. And what do you see when you look at those people? You see autogynephilic men who want to alter their body to become the object of their own desire. You see a tiny number of extremely gender nonconforming homosexuals who most likely want to, there's varying reasons, I think, partly transition, alter their bodies to be invisible so they don't experience homophobia when they leave the house. Another angle of it is for gay men.
Also, just for the people who aren't as totally immersed in this cuckoo stuff, there's like the two main subtypes for male to female transsexuals. There's like, tends to be the autogynephilic subtype, which tends to be like a heterosexual, very typically male presenting male or masculine presenting male. And they often will transition later in life, think like a Caitlyn Jenner. They often pursue very masculine activities, and people are kind of surprised when they come out as, you know, women, or as trans women. And then there's the HSTS trans, the homosexual trans subtype, which is like the Blair White. This is a lot of gay kids have gender dysphoria. And it's interesting because it's like, what really is the differentiation here? You know, like, I do think it's interesting trying to narrow down what these groups really are. Like, what are we really talking about? Yeah, Peter Bogghosian is great. I love his channel.
I'm told gay men aren't typically very attracted to the very effeminate gay man.
They
which
are
makes
or are
sense.
not?
They're not. They're not typically. And that makes sense. If you're attracted to men, you probably would be attracted to the more masculine man. So I'm told. This is not something I've confirmed, but somebody who knows a lot about this subject told me that. So
you're asking the wrong guy, but go ahead.
Some of the very effeminate gay men transition so that they can have sex as a woman because it's difficult to find a partner as a very effeminate gay man. I'm not completely sure about that, but. And then you look at the rapid onset, the culture-bound syndrome, the social contagion of all of these kids who are just swept up in a cultural moment because at this time we are infatuated with gender and we're bombarding them with messages. They're just
absolutely. And it seems like a lot of the like young people who are diving into this are kids who typically would have been like the emo kids, the goth kids. It's taken on this countercultural appeal to it because when you're young and rebellious, you're rejecting everything around you. So rejecting gender, that was one thing, but now we're rejecting sex as a concept and just getting into total cuckoo land anyway.
Confused, lost kids. And
okay, so let's bracket the kids from them because I think that's kind of a separate conversation. Okay, so two things. One, what's the problem with any of it? Like, why does this matter? And two, by your description, it would seem that, I guess it depends on what you mean by real, but this is a real thing. Like, they're sincere. Even if it's a cultural bound syndrome or a psychosis or a mass delusion, who cares if they want to chop off their breasts?
Right. Well, my point, what I'm saying is doctors need to treat the patient before them. They don't need to treat a political identity. They need to treat the person who's sat before them. So it's no good in a medical setting to have this identity that is not real in the sense that diabetes is real or whatever. Like the doctor needs
So there's
to...
no, what you mean by that there's no test for it?
It's a political identity. It's fine if you want to identify as transgender and make sense of your life through that label, that's fine. But that doesn't belong in the medical setting, because in the medical setting, doctors need to treat the person before them. So really what I'm saying is...
Oh, I see.
What's up, Melanie? Let me try to follow. Ruby, I'm not your ex. This is gonna make them come back. What? I have no interest in getting with my ex who I broke up with about 7 years ago. If we want to get with any exes, I think we all know the ex I'm still heartbroken over. Baby, if you want to get back together, you know I still have feelings for you. You know you still want to cuddle with me. Let's just put all that behind us, baby. Anyway. But yeah, Melanie, if you have a point or of disagreement, you're welcome to come up and express it. Okay, that's fair enough. I think I was pretty fair in saying that I don't have any issues with like trans people or people who want to present as the opposite sex. My issues are about denying basic reality about youth transition and about the legal precedent of putting males in female prisons and spaces where female biology does matter. Woman is a meaningful category that is going to exist no matter what. We can start calling it cis women, but then pretty soon the trans women are going to want to be called cis women. It's just a never-ending colonization of what it means to be a woman, but you're going to reach the end, and the end is that we just don't have the technology to change sex. But I'm happy to refer to anyone as whatever pronoun, and I don't think I'm being hateful, but you're totally inclined to perceive me that way. And yeah, maybe you're right. And I'll make a big apology video in a couple of years about how hateful and misguided I was.
If you're going to embark upon a very drastic, health-destroying medical pathway, know why you're doing it. Don't do it because you believe that you're this type of person, transgender, it's innate, it's natural, it's healthy.
Actually, Melanie, if you do want to come up, I'm kind of curious what happened with why you got mad at me, because I actually don't know. So if you want to tell me, that would be awesome. I'm sorry I blocked you, but you're just kind of like you were actually being kind of hateful towards me, like calling me a transphobic, bigot, whore, because one of my moderators timed you out, is what this is all about. So it kind of seems like you are the unhinged, hateful one. But feel free to defend yourself. I'm going to post the link in chat, and you can pop off and say whatever. I don't know. I'm not trying to be hateful. And I think I've been pretty fair with you too, even though everyone else hates you.
And that, we should celebrate it. Don't do it for that reason. Be grounded in reality. If you're doing it because you have a paraphilia and you want to embody the object of your own desire,
be honest about it.
Know that. Your doctor should know that. You should know that. You should be grounded in reality. If you're a homosexual and you want to transition because you want to be invisible, know that. Because Carol, that's what she told me. She bought into the whole gender thing, this idea that she was trans, because that's the idea loose in society. She transitioned to be invisible, but she told herself she was a trans man. She was kidding herself at the time, telling herself she was trans. And then she was invisible, but she still wasn't a man. And she was aware of that every single day.
Okay.
And then she detransitioned. So had she gone into it grounded in reality, everyone should go into it grounded in reality, knowing what their motivation really is, not believing themselves to be a type of person that actually doesn't exist.
Yeah, it actually kind of annoys me, Melanie, because like this has nothing to do with the fact that you're trans. The fact someone who isn't even me, you are like calling me a whore and all this shit. Like the misogyny is really coming out. Like, let's talk about trans misogyny. I think it's coming from one way to this way and not from this way to that way. Okay. I thought it was very reasonable to you, and I still don't know what upset you in the first place. Dead ass. I was maybe doing a phone stream and I didn't see the moment in chat when you got silenced. And I'm so sorry that for 2 seconds you weren't allowed to type in chat. Like, but I don't think that's hateful or bigoted. And I think it's actually really fucking disgusting to misuse terms like that to advance your own psychotic internet behavior. Okay? Like, make it make sense. I don't know. That's that's not just a rhetorical statement. Like,
So
make it make sense. I'm
obviously a lot to unpack there.
It's a request.
So you're not against the idea of people receiving a medical procedure like a double mastectomy, again, bracketing the kid stuff. You're not against that in principle. You're against that if the people are not honest about why they're doing it. Like if the people think they're doing it for one reason, but they're actually doing it for another.
Right. Well, let me.
I don't want to put. I'm trying
Not really.
Okay.
Let me be clear.
Okay.
I think I've done so many interviews, and I think sometimes it comes across as if I want the whole thing banned. I didn't
get that impression at all.
Other people have got that impression, believe me.
I kind of doubt if people do really have that impression of her, or if it is all bad faith, because her actual, regardless of what she personally believes on trans stuff, her opinions on like medical care and legal guidelines, like I don't think is that. I don't think she's ever said anything that would genuinely make someone believe that she wants to outlaw like plastic surgery.
In an ideal world, it never would have started. In an ideal world, back in the 1910s, 1920s, when the Germans started doing this, that never would have happened. We never would have unleashed this experiment it's supposed to be medicine, but it's not medicine, because medicine should not destroy healthy bodies. The whole thing has been misguided from the start, but we have it. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out, and we have to deal with it. And as long as the medical treatment exists, desperate people will seek it. They will seek it as the resolution to all that troubles them.
What's the problem with that? I mean, people get plastic surgery, people get breast surgery, reduction and enlargement, people get plastic surgery on their faces.
You see, I don't think it's the same thing at all, because plastic surgery just enhances what you already have and doesn't come with any promise of shouldn't come with any promise of a miracle cure for all your psychiatric disorders. As far as I can tell, I did look that after breast augmentation or reduction for a woman, if all goes well, she should still be able to breastfeed. She still has her natural anatomic features, and she should therefore still be able to breastfeed should that come up later. A double mastectomy for no health reasons whatsoever, you're not breastfeeding, it's gone, taken away from you. You can't compare vaginoplasty, the inversion of the penis, to a nose job. It's just not the same thing. And the men who embark on this penile inversion set their hopes on it, and I think have very unrealistic expectations that this is going to turn them into a woman.
Speaking of, I was surprised and or not surprised, but I was excited to see that Shapeshifter was leaving comments on my videos. And Shapeshifter, not sure what pronoun to use. They use, I guess, identify as he. They look totally female, but they were a trans woman who got the full like bottom surgery and everything and regrets it and has had major medical issues. And Shapeshifter's been super open about it and awesome. Like, so I would love, Shapeshifter, if you see this, would love to have you on sometime and chat with you, because I love your fucking content. I love your channel. I love that you also are just like doing all kinds of different interesting things, and I think it's super cool. But I like following a lot of like detransitioners, but also like based trans people. Like I'm obsessed with Skylar. Like I did an interview with Skylar. She's a super based trans woman, and I think she's approaching it as with a clear, healthy mind as anyone can. And I thought she was super cool to interact with, and I love her project too. And she's going in all cool different directions of spirituality that we've been talking about. So yeah, so many cool channels to check out that I think are just so underrated when it comes to commentary and the stuff. But I do see what feels like to me a change in the tide. It seems like the whatever ideological oppressive narrative, whatever that's like taken over, it seems like the tide is changing. It just seems like we're moving away from like the super PC, super rigid leftist. We're moving more towards, hopefully, more open, honest communication about reality would be cool to me, I guess.
Honestly, I've seen these inverted penises. I've seen surgeons call them fully functional vaginas. Now, fully functional means can be penetrated to these people. Like, no man is pushing a 9-pound baby through his inverted penis and then it all goes back into place. Fully functional, you can see how they look at what they think about women. If they think can be penetrated is fully functional. So
right, that's kind of a good point there. Yeah, it's like fully functional, aka a dick can go in and out of it.
They're giving these men, they're selling them false promises, false hopes. These men go into it with unrealistic expectations.
Expectations that I'm trying to keep it together here. So
I'm probably going on tangents because I'm jet lagged.
Expectations that if there's the physical is transformed, that like they'll have that experience, or that people will perceive them as such.
Yeah, I think both. You see, they think that they'll. I'm going to use the case of Jazz Jennings. I feel bad doing so because it's a real human being, but I watched I Am Jazz, the reality TV show. It starts when Jazz is on puberty blockers, and he's sweet and he's bubbly and there's light in his eyes and there's hope. And then he takes estrogen and all of his friends are dating.
How old?
I think it starts when he's about 13 or 14.
I was trying to bracket the kid stuff, but okay, let's do that. Okay,
we're there now.
Stuff. Yeah.
So then he starts estrogen and his friends are all dating. He's not feeling the pubertal hormonal surges and having these passionate crushes that define adolescence for most people.
Not just adolescence, but yeah.
Right, he has none of that, you can tell, but he feels he should be dating because his friends all have crushes.
Right.
But he can't date because he's the girl with a penis. So his life is on hold until he can get the surgery, which occurs, I think, when he's 17. So he's really looking forward to it. Big party. They have a penis cake and everything the night before. It's absolutely horrifying.
I'm going to get Reed a penis cake for his birthday. Yeah, keep going.
And then he has the surgery. Marcy Bowers, who is the president of Wpath.
Marcy Bowers. Remember that name. Marcy Bowers. I'm feeling she might end up having some very serious repercussions. She's the head of Wpath and one of the most popular, transgender surgeons out there, and was the one to perform Jazz Jennings surgery that had multiple complications because of the lack of penile tissue. Like I was just saying, this is what happens.
Marcy is the surgeon who does it. It's botched, and I don't know that it's necessarily Marcy's fault because Jazz was on puberty blockers, so it's like he never developed, his penis didn't develop, and they use the penile tissue to line the cavity that they call a vagina. He didn't have enough, so Bowers had to take a section of his thigh skin and a section of his peritoneum lining, and in it, they film it. It's on television. You can watch it. Bowers is in the operating room sewing these bits of tissue together and says it's like a patchwork quilt. It's basically a patchwork quilt of Jazz's tissue. They line the new vagina. A couple of days later, it bursts open. It's a medical emergency. He goes back in. He has the whole thing redone. And it's not quite, it's obviously not what he was expecting. It obviously hasn't turned him into a girl. He then has to dilate. I don't know if people understand what dilation really is, but
no,
it's
really.
Like it's almost like a dildo or something. You have to put it into the wound starting days after. This is major surgery. You have to put it in, for up to 2.5 hours a day, like 4 or 5 times in the period when you've just undergone major surgery. You have to keep dilating so the wound doesn't close up.
True.
When I say it's not medicine, I think you can understand now
To
what
a
I mean.
child.
Like, this is not medicine. This is
not.
abomination.
Yeah, it is.
So Jazz,
Fucking
all of
facts.
this is happening.
Fucking facts. Fucking based. That Marcy Bowers belongs in prison for doing that to a fucking healthy child. Or what should have been a healthy child if they weren't fucking like poached by TLC and like exploited and made the mascot of gender transition. And their life has utterly imploded and is a fucking disaster with tons of medical issues due to the fact that they did a quilt of different tissue from different body parts and then like shoved a fake cavity, inserted the quilt of the micro penis tissue with other tissue inside out, fully functioning vagina. Oh wait, no, it's not. And then they have issues with the urethra connecting too when they do this, because you also pee out of there. So there's almost 50+% of bottom surgeries have some kind of like urethra, like fissure or other kind of issue where they have to go back in for revision surgery. It's almost, that's expected because this is all very experimental, but it's being sold as if like the whole left got together and was like, oh, this is decided science. If you go against anything trans, you're going against science. I don't know, man. Maybe this is a transphobia talking, but like to do that to a child doesn't, you know, and to the results that have happened, this doesn't seem like a happy, well-adjusted person. They are not a success story. They're the biggest example of a failed youth transition.
Complications, the dilation, and you see the light go out of his eyes in the series that come afterwards. The light's just gone because he pinned all his hopes on vaginoplasty to turn him in. He wouldn't be the girl with the penis anymore. He'd be a real girl. And there's even this horrifying moment now I'm remembering. So he dates, and it's reality TV. So you can't tell how, I can't imagine why this would be scripted. If I don't know why they would have done it if it were scripted, but he's dating this kid and he tells the boy how his surgery was done. And the poor kid just like physically recoils at the horror of what is down there, you know, the description of it. And I think that's a lot of it. If these men or these kids are going into it thinking they're going to get a fully functional vagina, that nobody will be able to tell the difference, and then they end up with that, and then they end up with people recoiling at the sound of it or the sight of it, that's not making your life better, is it?
Okay, so...
Okay,
I
drop.
I have to have a moment after that. Okay, so
Yep.
Wow, that was really quite something. Okay,
it's horrific when it's all laid out before you. This is what's happening.
Sorry.
It's probably harder for a man to him. I can talk about it because I don't have that anatomy, but it horrifies me. And really, when I say it's not medicine, that's not what medicine does. Medicine improves your health or alleviates your suffering or whatever. What they did to Jazz Jennings and what they're doing to all these men, and goodness me, do you know what? Can I talk about phalloplasty for a moment? Can I go there?
Yeah, that sounds like a good
Let's
idea.
go there. Let's go there, baby. Let's go
okay?
there.
So let's say you've
Preach
got a
it,
girl,
sister. I love this
her,
bitch.
You told her she's a boy. She's trans, and she's this different type of human where you can be female, but you're actually a boy. So you've lied to her. She's growing up. She's on testosterone. She believes herself to be a boy, but she has breasts.
Lying to
and that
children.
doesn't make any sense. So she has her breasts cut off. And then she wakes up from that surgery, and it's all, you know, it's ghastly, and there's scars.
I've seen the pictures of all the smiling with the surgeons.
I know the smiles, and they don't reach the eyes. I don't find they're smiling, but there's pain in their eyes. But then, so after she's done that, she has no breasts. She's on testosterone. She has a choice at that point. She can live as a man with a vagina, but then she'll always be a man with a vagina, and she knows she's not a man. Or if she still feels dysphoric, she still doesn't feel like a man, she can opt for phalloplasty, which is the greatest crime medicine has ever committed. This is when they'll take the skin of her forearm, they strip her forearm, they take the tissue, they fashion it into something like an appendage, like a sausage-like shape, stretch out her urethra, and then sew this onto her groin, and they call it medicine. It's a
stretch the
ghoulish horror show.
urethra.
And how on earth is that going to make her mental health any better? The complication rate is through the roof. It's astronomical. There's the option of it can be a limp arm flesh appendage, or you can have one with a pump fitted in. So when it's time, you just pump it up, and is that going to make you feel like a man? Is that going to improve your mental health? Is that going to solve all of the...
So you pump this flesh up,
yeah,
and it becomes erect,
yeah,
and then you do whatever it is that you do with the person or people you're with this thing, and there's no orgasm.
Well, I mean, they honestly, there's so much self-deception, there's so much self-delusion. So when they've taken the tissue from the forearm and they've fashioned it, they somehow use the clitoral tissue. It's supposed to be attached in some way. So they will tell these girls that there's still a possibility of orgasm. I cannot.
Melanie's welcome to come up and tell me whatever her issue is.
But that's your self-deception. If you have made all of these choices, you chose to have this arm flesh appendage attached to your groin, you get to the end and it's not made you feel any better, it's not made you feel like a man, I think there's a really powerful self-deception where you just keep telling yourself, this is what I wanted and this has made me feel better and I am having great sex and whatever, but I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I just don't.
All right, we don't actually want to be transphobic, but what's called transphobia, I don't think is anything bigoted. I don't think it's bigoted to talk honestly about reality. But I have no hate towards anyone who presents in a gender atypical way. I love that for them. Okay. Honestly.
Sorry.
I think we strayed rather far from wherever we were. But...
I think that's kind of a reasonable reaction. But all right, so how many people?
I'm kind of glad they leave those parts in instead of taking it out.
To like how many people are we talking about?
Well, for phalloplasty, I'm not actually sure. Not many end up going down the phalloplasty road. I did look at some numbers recently because I've been focused on the diagnosis of gender dysphoria. So I was looking at the number of people diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and like the Manhattan Institute did an analysis of insurance claims and found that between, I think it was 2017 to 2023, about 400,000 kids, so under 17s, had an official diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which is a nonsense diagnosis that means absolutely nothing. That's 400,000 kids, and that's just insurance claims. So it's going to be higher because there will be people who...
It means nothing. Why? Because the institutions are captured, or why?
Gender dysphoria, you want me to go there? Because that's my thing at the moment. It's a nonsense diagnosis.
Well, finish the story, and then, I mean, I have so many questions.
But... Yeah, numbers are really difficult because the US is basically where most of it's happening, and you don't have centralized record keeping. So like say 400,000 diagnosed with gender dysphoria, that's 17 and under. Those are the ones with insurance, so there's way more than that. Then I don't even know how many adults.
So let me ask you a question. So assume that we had a mechanism for, and we don't, but let's just accept by fiat for the purpose of the conversation.
Okay.
As a thought experiment, that we have a mechanism to figure out how satisfied people are with this 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Could it be that I'm just looking at this, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it, but like I'm sick to my stomach now. That's repulsive to me. But it could be that it's only repulsive to me because I don't buy into it in the first place. So if I bought into it in the first place, I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. That sounds wonderful. The pump, great. I mean, it could be, it's kind of like a moral system, right? That you look at another moral system and you say, oh my God, it's terrible. But they look at your moral system and think the same thing because you don't buy into each other's moral systems. Okay, let's say there's an empirical way to test this. We look at self-reports of people, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And we find that like the vast majority, like virtually 100% of these people, like, this is great, glad I did it. Would you change your mind about whether or not this was a good thing?
I've often thought, what would it?
It's like a really good question, because it's like, the thing that I've always thought is it's like whatever, perhaps like there is this thing, gender dysphoria, that's like a distinct experience that's not just autism or being gay or blah, 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 blah. And I've generally kind of been somewhat of what they call a true transer, and that I just kind of like have accepted that this seems to be something that has existed across cultures, this phenomena of people who really, really, really strongly identify as the other sex for whatever reason. I just accept that. But this has taken on new life. This movement has turned into something entirely different than the trans movement when I first was introduced to it, when I was going to see like Buck Angel speak in like 2010, when this shit was just popping off. And I was on board with the early stuff. And it's like, it just took a wackadoodle direction to the detriment of all LGBT people. So trans people should have a vested interest in fighting back against a lot of the excesses of the movement, because these excesses just fuel the fire to like perhaps put in legislation that is crazy or is more overreaching into infringing on people's rights. It wouldn't be the first time government has done that. So it's like, God, I don't know, man.
Would it take for me to change my mind? And you're almost there.
You're in the right show then. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you're almost there. What it would take to change my mind is not that, though, because we have that. We have these crazy studies about regret that say 1% or less regret. We have that for phalloplasty. We followed people for years. Only 1% or less regret when they did a systematic review of all the studies of the regret rates. It's the most appalling study, I think, in existence in
what
gender
was the
medicine.
N on that? Do you remember how many people were in that?
Oh, it was only a few hundred. It wasn't a massive
still, that's
number.
1%, that's nothing.
Right. So self-report would never convince me because of the self-deception that I was just talking about. We know this, when you put a lot into any decision, if you make a decision and then it's arduous or it's difficult or whatever, you put a lot into it, you are invested in it being the right decision, and you're going to convince yourself psychologically that it was the right decision.
That's actually a really interesting philosophical question. Can you deceive yourself?
Funny thing, I used to think that Jordan Peterson was like evil incarnate. I had this really warped perception of him, and like part of like my big spiritual awakening, I had been watching like a lot of like Jordan Peterson videos initially to debunk him and find out things he was saying incorrect. And I actually found him to be giving a lot of insightful advice. And I found it to be actually a beautiful thing to be helping young lost men improve their lives. And people think that's like fake or not meaningful, but I find it to be really meaningful. People shit on like self-help, but it's like sometimes people need help helping themselves. I just don't think it's that crazy. But yeah, once I did my own research into him and watched like, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of all of his podcasts, I came away with a much different perception than I had been filtered through like leftist media to reach me initially, so it was through my dedication to like debunking him that was, one of the many things that kind of started making me a little less ideologically rigid, a little more open to conservative values, tradition, religion, and being drawn more to systems of order than disorder, etc. He just has a way of wording things, and sometimes the right assortment of words is magic and it does inspire someone to do something real. Thought, word, action. And reaction. And let's keep rolling the tape. Rolling Let's tape out.
Yourself into your own happiness.
What the fuck? Why am I?
Because if you can deceive yourself into your own happiness, in other words, you can't be wrong about the fact that you're happy. And if you arrive there through self-deception, again, I'm not saying, I'm just throwing it out, but then that still wouldn't be a reason to be against it.
I don't think it's true happiness, though. I think it's if you've got to work at it and continue to deceive yourself endlessly, it's a fragile state of happiness. It's probably not going to last because at some point the self-deception will collapse, I think. I don't think you can deceive yourself into genuine happiness. I think you can.
I think people do it in marriages all the time.
Do they though, really? Or do
Well, that's
they just
genuine
muddle
happiness.
along and tell themselves that they're happy when they know truly that they're not?
Yeah, maybe there's a differentiation between true happiness, which has an immediacy and is easier. And okay.
That's true. Jordan Peterson, I mean, here's the thing. I like him. That doesn't mean that I think everything he says or does is the best, most amazing thing ever. But I do find some meaning, and I've enjoyed his work, and I don't think he's evil. I don't think he has a lot of hatred towards women that I used to think based on like just clips taken out of context. I have no issue with the man. He's kind of daddy, so.
Okay, so anyway, back to this. So what would it take to change your mind about this? Like,
all right, what it would take, I think, is, well, something that could never possibly happen, I do believe, is like if you could show me a randomized control trial where you take a whole group of people who identify as transgender, half of them you do the medical route and half of them you do psychotherapy, and at the end of 20 years, these guys on the medical pathway are happy and thriving and their life is wonderful. And these guys on this pathway are depressed, miserable, and most of them have killed themselves.
I agree. But you couldn't do that because the institutions are all compromised.
Simply not possible. But that would convince me.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely convinced that these people over here would be much healthier and would be thriving. The autogynephilic men may be separate because the erotic drive it's a burning desire for them. I've read some crazy stories about the lengths that autogynephilic men will go to if they can't get the surgery. But for the most part, I think most of them on the non-medical route, if people really tried to help them and help them understand what's going on in their life and why they've come to this conclusion, these people would be happier and these people would not.
What's the this in that sentence? This conclusion? Which conclusion? The surgery?
Well, no, I mean, all of the people, you've got this group of people here, they're transgender.
Yeah.
So they've basically, if you're transgender, you've come to the conclusion that in order to be happy, you need to have healthy body parts chopped off. You need to have genital surgery. You need to have all the hormones and everything. That's the conclusion you've come to. And I think if you could have the two tracks, give one what they want and give the other psychotherapy to help them understand why they came to that conclusion.
By non-compromised people. By non-compromised therapists. By independent therapists.
And that's an issue too, is when trans ideology really captured most institutions, it became a liability for a therapist to push back against the transgender identity. And that creates a whole obstacle because you really need a system to filter through people to do such extreme procedures. There needs to be, if this is something we're offering, there needs to be extreme medical safeguarding to make sure that, well, I don't know. I'm still a little up in the air about the true trans stuff. Is it really bad? At least it's not like, I don't know. I've had so many issues with like audio and I just don't know what the dealio is. When's For the Boys going on? I need some, and I'm sick of being entertainment, okay?
Doing their job.
Evidence,
doing their job and getting
to the key qualifier. Yeah, okay.
Right. So that's all I think, that's where I think we need to go. We need to help everyone understand. I believe they've come to the wrong conclusion. I think it's the wrong conclusion to think that you need to have your penis inverted in order to be happy. It's the wrong conclusion to think you need to have an arm flesh appendage sewn onto your groin in order to be happy. That's the wrong conclusion.
But it could be that that's just the wrong conclusion for you and me. It could be that these people engage in this. I mean, some people engage in truly crazy behavior that makes them happy. Have you ever seen an MMA fight?
I have, yes.
Okay, so that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's completely crazy that someone would risk that kind of brain damage, head injury. Like, it's totally insane to me. But yet those guys are like, love it. They're totally happy. People engage in crazy activity all the time. But for them, it makes them happy. So maybe for somebody, it makes them like overjoyed to have their genitals removed. The thought of that is wonderful. The thought of having.
And if that's the case, though, I do think that's generally a good argument. I'm not proposing like any restrictions, but then we have to apply that same standard to people who have that other fetish she was talking about, where it makes them really, really happy to cut off an arm, to cut off a leg. The people who have, what's it called? Hey, what's up, Julia? Sounds like you dropped the mic in the toilet. What the fuck? What happened? Ugh. I'm getting no emergency alerts. You're saying the microphone's in the toilet. What is? Let me check this, because sometimes things get disconnected. Settings, audio, check. So that's working. What? I mean, the video is scuffed. No, not again. Why? It's happening. So it was working and now it's not working? Julia, I know. People say that I'm coping when I say that I'm shadow banned, but dead ass, like, nobody gets notified or am not put in any feeds. Like, but whatever. I'm happy as long as I have, if there's anyone watching. I was going to watch this anyway, so, and it'll be up on my channel for people to watch later if they want to. I'm in my iPad and didn't see you in the feed. Let me play this and go listen. It sounds like in the other room on my phone for a second, see what the issue is.
The pump, the thought of removing the skin from the arm. Maybe I know it's crazy to you and me, but people have different proclivities. They have different sexual urges. They discharge those urges in different ways. So maybe for them, this is just fantastic. This is the best thing ever.
I would need to see evidence of that, in that the problem I think with the medical
I don't know why this happened.
transition pathway is
this is what I was saying like in the
decision
beginning,
that
but like
make you happy.
People are saying it was working
And
fine.
the only way
Now
to
it's
know
all like
whether or not you were right
and
is
weird.
to go all the way to the end. And
so let me see if I can, if there's maybe a quick fix. Well, at least it worked for most of it. Let me see if there's a quick fix here. Microphone access. Like, what changed? I'm just sitting here, and then it's like all of a sudden there's an audio change. Sometimes my camera just disconnects randomly. Microphone. Let me go to my audio settings and see if there's something I can fix here. Output device. Let me know if it comes back.
What we need to find all of these men, all of them, every single one who's
Is it better?
His penis inverted, and look at his life and how he's doing. Don't just ask him if he's happy.
So weird. Well, if I refresh, I'll lose this game.
Make that decision.
I can refresh this video.
Show me.
So it still sounds bad?
This situation could look at it and continue to deceive yourself.
It's still bad?
Overall health. It takes decades off a person's life.
What the fuck, dude?
Wrong. It's really dangerous to base that on some nonsense ideology.
Well, I mean, we watched a lot of that, and I do want to start going back to like the content that I used to do, and vortex, just like reacting to the Thorpes and drama. You know, I still want to maintain my ongoing interests and participation in conversations that aren't just drama about like that you could ever dream up, really. So thank you guys for tuning in for this little reaction video. I don't know why StreamYard is like this, because I like using StreamYard. It's a format I'm getting comfortable with. But then this just randomly happens where the video just starts sounding crazy. And it's annoying because I want to set up and promote. Like, this wasn't set up or like promoted at all. I don't want to set up and like promote streams that are going to be based on reacting to content if this is going to happen at random times. Do you think Mel did something from a remote location? Definitely. I think we all know who the culprit is here. I mean, well, I'm glad that, I mean, you guys are welcome. Look up the interview Mia Hughs. This is like an important that I think is, it's a issue that I think that there is cultural momentum in changing, and I do think it's good to be informed on these topics so that when they come up, you can have something useful to say, and hopefully will change the cultural temperature. And we're already seeing the way out of this fucked up situation that they're in is through the detransition lawsuits. And already we're setting more legal precedent to sue these surgeons like Marcy Bowers. You're going down, bitch. You're going down, bitch. Marcy, I don't identify as a trans woman. I identify as a woman with a trans history, bitch. You're going down, okay? Keep cutting off micro hot dogs and see what happens, bitch. Because we coming for you, and you're going to end up locked up getting, well, I don't know. Anyway, your justice is coming. Stop mutilating children. It's a bad thing to do, I feel. And I do feel that we are going to look back at this time like we do with other bizarre cultural moments, like Satanic Panic, you know, like I do think that we're going to be looking back at this particular cultural moment with a lot of confusion when we look back. Absolutely. Is it your bandwidth? I don't know. I pay extra for the good internet, supposedly. If it stops being good or stop actually good, I want the, let's go to the cheap shit. I need to put on more makeup. Like, I'm not wearing enough foundation. You can see all my skin. Maybe I should put on the beauty filter. Wait, let me put on the beauty filter all the way up and see what it looks like. Touch up my appearance. All right, so this is it on subtle, off, subtle, moderate, white strips who, bitch? White strips who, bitch? Speaking of, that's one of my big goals, is I would like to get white strips so that the haters can focus on their jowls again. Okay, now we're in strong, and now we're in very strong. Wait, let me see. I can't even see the full, because I'm in the background right now. I want to see the actual visual. See, I find that this doesn't, sure, maybe in a way I look more attractive, but it's bizarre and gives uncanny. That's why I think it's best to post non or like unfiltered stuff. I don't know. Should I just, what do you guys think? I know a streamer that goes with filters. She won't stream without it. A lot do. And why wouldn't they? If you're, the only reason it's like, you may as well present your, people don't give a fuck, I guess. And when everyone's doing filters and shit, if you're not doing a filter, you look like worse. But I don't know. I just think people do appreciate seeing people's actual appearance. And I just don't think that I have that bad skin or anything that I really need to be doing that. You know, I think I got a pretty good deal considering how wretched my choices have been. All right, now I'm turning off. This might be traumatic. All right, maybe it was better with the filter. What do you guys think? Should I use it? Yeah, it's cute, but it's like, why not? Like, oh no. Like, I think it actually looks, it makes me look younger to be able to see my freckles and stuff. All right, guys, what is it, 125? I guess I'll go get some lunch. Thank you for donating, people. Super duper appreciate it. What is up? Not bad. Fix audio, then fuss over filter. Okay. Let me try to fix this on. Let me just try one more time to fix this. See if there's something that I can easily do because this is annoying and I don't want to have to deal with this in the future. All right, let's try sharing the stream again or the screen. Present, share screen. Let's see if the audio will work. Okay, YouTube, share.
So he had these.
We got a celebrity streaming right now. I think I just saw Foreman in the corner. And then he disappeared. Also, what the fuck? People have notifications on for me and it never sends out notifications. Why the fuck does YouTube hate me? Can you guys hear it? Or is it still fucked up? See what you want, shake that. Robot hand moves steady. She don't need to shake the machine. Not that she left in your be more. UFO I can be IP on. You only when you're deep. Is it still like fucked up sounding? Got it. She's got it. Yeah. All right. Let me try. Okay, so why did it sound? Let me look in my audio thing. Looking at my settings, it says output device. Speakers, Realtek audio, spatial sound off, Windows, volume mixer, output audio, micro inputs. What the fuck? Is it working? Still messed up? All right, let me try something else. Like, what the fuck? Output device. I just don't get why there's an issue here. Fuck, what did I just do? All right, I just reset everything. Let's try it one more time and see if anything changed. Well, now it's just playing through my speaker, so that's definitely not the answer. Cool. So it's just restarting StreamYard is the thing? That's so annoying. Because then I would have to restart the stream, right? That's so fucking annoying. But whatever. We hit an hour and a half. That was a good stream. That was a good stream to react to some of that interview. You guys watch the rest. And I guess now I'll switch to, I don't know, making some vegan chicken nuggets and being horizontal for a bit before I have to go into the bookstore. And maybe I'll stream from there again because I'm fucking addicted to this shit, baby. And I need to start branching out from freaking StreamYard. There's other websites. I just get like stuck on stupid, man. I get just like whatever's easiest. I get stuck doing that. Little problems pop up and then they aren't that big of enough problem to deal with. So I put it off and then it pops up again. And it's hard being a one-woman project, okay? Anyway, I guess I don't need these anymore. Freedom. I hate words. I guess I'll go out and get some. Well, I have vegan chicken nuggets. I guess I can eat those, but I didn't really eat any breakfast yet. I just had hash browns that I got with my Dunkin' Rewards points. So we live in that life, baby. Also, that was a fun stream, impromptu, last night. I mean, it wasn't entirely impromptu because I was going to do the political compass test, but it ended up turning into a totally different vibe. And it got pretty fucking juicy and intense, but overall, very fun stream. And I appreciate everyone who hopped on. Stay tuned later in this week. Me and Ava are going to be doing a stream. And I want to refocus on putting out edited content and revisiting my broader interests so that I don't get stuck in this like drama loop, even though that's what gets the views. That's what gets, like, it doesn't matter. I'm fine. Not every video has to get 1,000 views. It's fine. I'm fine. All right. But thank you so much, guys. Super duper appreciate it. Much love. Hit me up on the Discord. Hit me up on the Twitter. Melanie, you're a bitch for not coming up. But it's all love, baby. From one crazy bitch to another. Boop. Give me money and follow, subscribe, like the buttons, and follow me around the world and love me, and not in a stalker way. Thank you, and have a great day. Good night. Make it stop. Make it stop.